All right, we're live. Thank you for joining us for the Getting Ready for Oiler Nation Parent Family Edition. We have a couple of staff members here that are going to talk to you about everything you need to know from a parent's point of view. We've got Brandon Mooney, we've got Brian Treece, Koch, and joining us shortly, Spraw. So let's get started with some introductions. I will turn it over to Brandon, and then we'll just go down the row and let everybody introduce themselves.
Great, thanks, Charlie. My name is Brandon Mooney. I'm actually the Assistant Director for Undergrad Admissions and the Orientation Coordinator here at the University of Findlay. I've been with UF for a little over 8 years, and looking forward to another year of new Oilers.
My name is Brian Treece. I'm the Assistant Dean of Students and Director of Residence Life here at the university. On behalf of all of us in Residence Life, the student resident assistants, resident directors, and all of us in the Student Affairs Office, we want to welcome you to the Oiler Nation family, and we're excited to be working with your students pretty soon.
And my name is Kay Cook. I'm the Director of the Oiler Success Center. I've been here for going on 11 years. I, too, along with everyone here at the University of Findlay, are looking forward to working with your son or daughter.
All right, and when Dee Dee makes her way in, we will give her the spotlight, let her introduce herself, and go over some brief things. So let's get it started. Brandon, go ahead and kick us off with everything that we need to know about orientation, move-in day.
All right. Start things off actually a little bit earlier today. Most of the parents and students will have received a straight PDF version of the e-packet. Now this is the same packet that was actually sent out at a few different points here fairly recently. All of this information is also available right on the UF webpage at www.findlay.edu. The e-packet was a pretty straightforward PDF. It contains the overall schedule for new student orientation. Also has some real helpful documents in there about tips, things to bring, things to make sure and do. One of the big things in particular is remembering to activate your Oiler One card. A lot of students accidentally throw that in the trash because they assume that it is some form of unsolicited credit card because it doesn't come in a UF envelope. That will actually come from the One card, but that is indeed your student ID. So if you or your student has already thrown that away, contact us and we can definitely see about getting you a replacement for that. The overall schedule and such can actually be found on the UF website, and I'm going to take you there and show you where some of that information is hiding. In theory, I'm kidding, I am not going to take you there. Okay. Alright, I did not have those pages linked, I apologize. If you go to the UF website and keyword orientation, it will actually take you directly to our landing page for new student orientation. You can actually source any of those documents. I believe Charlie's going to have that up for us here shortly. And you can look at that e-packet in its entirety. You can also look at the documents individually. Something else that's a great thing for the families that will be joining us for the weekend, many of the hotels in the Findlay area will actually offer a discounted rate if you're coming for the university. And there again, if you just go to the Findlay website and keyword hotels, it will give you a direct link through the UF website to a local Findlay website that gives you a listing of all the hotels in the area. What I would recommend for our families that will be joining us, most of our students will be moving in on Thursday from 2 to 9 p.m., but there will be a relatively small number of our students that could potentially be moving in on Wednesday, and that will depend upon your student's registration date, and Brian will probably talk to us a little bit more about that as we go. But for those of you that are coming in on Thursday, that main move-in is going to be from 2 to 9, and with that, a couple of things that make it go smoother for us. Please send your student in only. It is a relatively small space for a relatively large number of people. So it will make the whole event go a lot smoother, and then we actually have a movie that we're doing Thursday evening for the students. Now, all throughout the day on Friday, I have programming for the families and for the parents. Actually, Kay will be part of that programming. She'll be doing some of the sessions both with the students and with the families. I have programming up until around 5 to 5:30. We will kind of cap things off for our families with the art ceremony on Friday afternoon. That should wrap up around 5 to 5:30. Dee Dee, who will be with us shortly, actually has some other activities that she's hoping the parents will join us for. But around 5:30 after that art ceremony is when we really ask that you kind of turn it over to us and sort of let us take it from there, because I have a lot of extremely entertaining and keep them busy type programming for your students. That's kind of orientation in a nutshell. I know it sounds like a fairly short piece, but there's quite a bit going on with it. There's going to be things all day Saturday. There's going to be things all day Sunday. In fact, one of the things I have coming in is Dave Coleman. If you've ever watched the movie Hitch, that is actually Dave Coleman. He is the date doctor. I know that sounds like an odd person to be bringing in to talk to your students, but he actually does a wonderful piece for us about coming to college. He does a wonderful piece for the parents as well. Tremendous speaker, definitely something to look forward to. I'm going to bring in a zip line, a mechanical bull, a cornhole tournament, giant inflatable twister. We'll have an activity Friday night with some of the Res Life staff, an event with Dave Coleman. We're going to have our community service opportunities. Sunday I'm going to have a carnival-style info fair, a huge picnic for all the students, chances to meet with the orientation leaders who will actually be meeting with your student throughout the first semester and second semester. Lots of things going on. Very, very big weekend for us, and something we're pretty excited about here in another couple days to start kicking off.
All right. Thanks, Brandon. That was awesome. Okay.
Yes.
Moving things over, before we shift gears and talk about some Residence Life thing, I want to remind everyone that they can chat any questions to us in the chat room, or they can tweet any questions using @UFindlay and hashtag AskUF. So keep the questions coming in. We'll get to them at the end of our hangout here. We're going to shift gears and change it over to Brian. Brian's going to give us a brief overview of Residence Life. Brian, take it.
Great. Well, thank you. RA training started yesterday. RA stands for Resident Assistant, and they're the students that work in each of the areas where students live on campus. And training started yesterday. So I asked our resident assistants and resident directors, I let them know I was coming here today, and I'm like, what information would you want your parents to know? What is the most important information that I can provide? And there's two different directions that they went, the immediate need and then the longer term need. So right now, the immediate need is move-in day. That's the biggest concern. You're getting packed, you're going to stores and buying things, figuring out what you need. So here are the tips. Some of them Brandon mentioned earlier, but they bear repeating. So here are a few main points for move-in day. Most first-year students are going to pick up their keys between 2 and 8 p.m. on Thursday, August 14th. There are some that fall outside of that, but the largest majority of our first-year students are moving in 2 to 8 on Thursday the 14th. And if you're looking at your calendars, that is in less than 10 days. So start getting ready now. All the keys are available in the Alumni Memorial Union. Keys will not be available until right at 2 p.m. So I know there might be a desire to get here early. Keys won't be available till right at 2. I would suggest arriving a little later than 2. There tends to be a really large rush right at 2, and with rushes come lines. There will be a line, there's no way around it, so if you come a little later than 2, the likelihood that you'll wait is a little lower. So I would suggest that. Like Brandon said, I would suggest just the student going to pick up the keys. There's a few pieces of paperwork, a few procedural things to do, and it just makes it a lot less congested if we can work directly with the student in that process. Parents and families can either wait outside of the union, or you can go directly to the residence hall, knowing that your sons and daughters will meet you there soon. All belongings need to be labeled with the student's name and the student's room number. We have volunteers at several different locations during move-in day, and they will pretty much surround your car and take everything up to the room. Labeling that helps us out tremendously. We have a lot of volunteers who are really excited to see everybody. It'll help them if we label everything. All belongings, you really want to consider what you bring. Something we see every year is students bring as much as possible. The rooms are large, of course, but they aren't large enough to hold every single thing you might think about bringing. So think about talking with your roommate if you haven't done so already. Who's bringing the mini fridge? Who's bringing the microwave? Who's bringing a TV, so you don't end up with 2 of everything and have to load things up and take them home. Also think about natural visits when you're going home. If students plan on going home before the winter months, they might not necessarily want to bring all of their winter clothes at this first round. A third packing suggestion, a lot of students purchase quite a few organizers ahead of time, which is great, but my advice would be to wait until you get into the room and then organize your room and see what organizers or what devices you really need, and then going to the store locally and picking those up. That eliminates having to take things back or having things that you can no longer use. That helps a lot. So that is the short term. The long term is how Residence Life can help your students throughout the course of the year. Our main purpose is to improve or maintain a good quality of life and a positive experience for students who live on campus. RAs, or resident assistants, live on each floor or in each small living unit, and then resident directors oversee a group of RAs. So a resident director might oversee a residence hall or 2 residence halls, and there are a lot of different roles that those individuals play. They're a mentor to students, a leader, they organize programs, they serve as a resource person, they uphold community standards, and they do whatever they can to help your students have the best experience possible. Long term, they asked that the RAs and RDs asked that I pass on to you, to pass on to your sons and daughters, that it's really important to work with those individuals. Have your sons and your daughters meet them, come to them with problems, come to them with concerns that they have. If they need help finding something, RAs are a wonderful resource. We really encourage all students to develop that relationship with their resident assistant and resident director. Another suggestion would be to encourage your students to work on becoming problem solvers. I know a first instinct is to take over and solve the problem for a student or make that phone call for the student, but this is a really important time where your student can start taking control of that. You can be the support, you can be a resource person, you can identify different ways that they have to solve a problem, but we really want the student to take the lead in addressing any concerns, seeking out resources. We are here for them. All of us in Student Affairs, not just in Residence Life, but all of us here at Student Affairs and at the university as a whole are here for our students. Help us help them by letting them take control and having them seek out answers to their questions.
Outstanding. All right. Just another reminder, you can hit all your questions up in the chat room, or you can tweet your questions to @UFindlay using the hashtag AskUF. Now, switch over to Kay Koch. Kay, please give us an overview on how parents can help their new Oiler be successful.
Thank you. Well, Brian actually touched base on a couple of the things, but one of the big things is you need to prepare as a parent to take that new role as the mentor. You want to be that coach for your child. You need them to take charge of what they need to do. Again, you need to know what the resources are on campus, but when that inevitable phone call happens, when they hate this place or they hate their major or they don't know what to do, you have that card, and it was if you came to a registration, it's the campus contacts cards. All the numbers are on there. You can tell them contact so-and-so, and if you don't know where to go to the Oiler Success Center. That's one office. If you remember one office to tell your child to go to, tell them to go to the Oiler Success Center. Because that office, which is my office, is actually set up to just be that hub, so that if there is any questions, concerns for your son or daughter, they're not sure where to go, they're frustrated, maybe they were told to go to financial aid, then the business office, and they're not getting anywhere, let us try to step in and help them. So know what resources are available and make sure that you have your child, your son or daughter, do that outreach here on campus. It's also important for us to understand that there are going to be highs and lows during this first year, especially the first year, for both your son or daughter and you as parents. It's very difficult. I put 4 children through college. I know it's very difficult to let go sometimes. We're used to having that control, and so now all of a sudden they're on their own and they're wanting to expand these new horizons. And I often say the reality of college, even if your child is really, really ready to conquer the world and go off to college, it can be very, very overwhelming and scary. And so, you know, they have this great inspiration to be successful and to do new things and explore new avenues in college life. And yet they are simultaneously missing that sense of loss from a family, the connection at home, and it is a dramatic altercation to their lives and to yours. When you're sitting there at the dinner table and your son's not sitting there with you, all of a sudden it can be very overwhelming. We also need to know that they will make mistakes. It's a guarantee. But it's also, and it is very difficult to watch at times, but it's also, that is how they learn. That's how they grow, and that's how they become that mature individual. So we also need to help our children understand that these mistakes, they should look at it as being an opportunity rather than as a failure. Now again, we're hoping that those are not large mistakes. But it is a huge experience for them with this college experience, and it's going to be a big change for you as well. So what I say is we have to, as parents, we have to have proper preparation for our students. In other words, you need to make sure that you have that FAFSA form signed and in. You need to make sure that you have the payment agreement for your child. You know, make sure you help them work through. If you want the access, make sure that they do the parent portal so that you can have access. This is all very important things, so that proper preparation is very important. Attitude. I say with attitude, it's that support. If you leave here crying and holding on to your son or daughter saying, I just don't know how I'm going to live without you, of course it becomes a very dramatic, and then it also kind of sets the tone for your son or daughter. So if at all possible, like I did, you drop them off, you get in the car, and then with your husband or your wife, whichever it may be, you just bawl your eyes out and say, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but it's not in front of your son or daughter, and that helps a lot. Motivation is another thing that's very, very important. We need to offer encouragement. We need to listen to them. Sometimes they're going to have those down days, but rather than saying, well, maybe the best thing for you to do is just come back home, be there as that supportive mechanism and say, hey, you need to hang in there, do what you can, you know, here's some resources, have you used the tutoring center, have you used the many resources that are available on campus, and then staying informed. It's very important that you listen to, there's a parent newsletter that goes out that has a bunch of information in it for you, resources, links. There is also, like I said, we got the campus contact cards that I handed out. If you didn't get one, let me know. I'd be more than happy to send it to you. We have this academic course calendar that I also handed out at registrations that has the fall and spring semester of important days. These are all resources that are available for you to help your son or daughter be successful. And I often share with parents, I say, we're all stakeholders in this process to help your child be successful. And we want you to be a proud, happy parent also. So we just all need to work together and to help your son or daughter be successful.
All right. Okay, thank you so much. We, unfortunately, are not going to be done with Dee Dee's presence tonight, so we're just going to move into some questions. And to kick off some of those questions, I'll leave it up to you guys who would like to answer. A mom who would like to remain nameless, so for right now, we're going to call her Sarah's mom. She would like to know if parents and or siblings are allowed to eat dinner at Henderson Hall on move-in day.
Go ahead.
Yes, parents and families are welcome to eat dinner in Henderson on move-in day. talk about that with your student, because your student might have a very different idea on how that last meal together would go. A lot of students want to go out one last time, but you are more than welcome to eat in the dining hall. The dining hall has an interesting program called Parents Are Always Our Guests, and so if you look into that, on most of the weekends or even during the week, parents can eat with their students in the dining hall free of charge.
Brandon had his hand up. Did you want to add anything to that?
Something to keep in mind, students, is that their meal plans will activate on Thursday. So while mom, dad, brother, sister, we're footing the bill, the students will actually start with their meal plans on Thursday because those do activate. So even though we may ask your student for their card to swipe it, families, nothing to worry about. We'll feed you throughout move-in day, and make sure that even if your son or daughter is having some issues with that Euler card that they already threw away, we will definitely make sure that they are fed and watered just like a puppy. We will make sure that that everyone's taken care of in that respect.
All right. Thank you, guys. Moving on with the questions. Sue has a great question here about security. She is wondering if, besides keeping the dorms locked, what else do they do to protect their TVs, their gaming systems, etc.? She wants to know if security offers engraving on the electronics.
Good question. I'll talk about safety generally and then get directly to your question about specific items. The best thing that I could do, students each come with a different background, different experiences at home that kind of lead to some of their actions here. Findlay, if you look at all of our logs and all of our reports, we're a very safe campus. I would suggest that you as a family go check out keyword safety or keyword security, and you can look at all the information that we have online. A few things: we do lock the halls. We do have blue light phones. We do have cameras across campus. We do have the Euler alert, which I highly recommend students look into. It's our text alert system. It's not used every day. It's only used in the case of emergencies. Students are automatically opted into that. They just have to choose to opt out with the cell phone number that they provide to us. My biggest suggestions as far as safety, and it seems like common sense, but have that conversation with your students before they arrive. Residence hall room doors need to be locked unless the student is awake and there. Most any problems that we have with theft are because the student's room door was left unlocked. That includes if you run down the hall to use a shower, if you run 4 doors down to talk to a friend. Anytime the student's not in the room and not awake in the room, they should have that door locked. That includes cars. There are students who, based on their background, locking the car isn't necessarily a priority. Like any city, I highly recommend people lock their cars, lock their bikes, use very basic safety principles. Some other things that we do is if a student's ever walking across campus and wants a ride, maybe it's dark and maybe they're alone and they just would rather have a ride, if they call our security office, the officers are more than happy to help them out, escort them where they'd like to go. They also offer bike registration and car registration. They're encouraging all students to register their bikes, and then they're requiring all students to register their cars. That's just an added safety mechanism. Being a small campus, if somebody needs to move their car, it's not uncommon. Instead of taking more drastic measures, they'll call the student and just talk to them, and the problem's solved easily. As far as engraving personal items, that's another option that you have that we would encourage, of course. And copying down any serial numbers. In-room safes are always something that you can bring in if you need to or if you'd like to. We do not provide in-room safes and we do not provide engraving, but those are all options that you might want to look into. The biggest thing, though, is, again, locking the doors. That's the number one thing I can suggest.
But our security does not offer engraving. If,
Right.
if I understood that question.
Right, security does not offer
Yes.
engraving.
But it is a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great idea. The second part of her question, real quick, is do the dorms have generators in case of a power outage?
Some of our buildings do have generators. Not all of them do have generators, but we have plans in place for if the power would go out in sunny days and not sunny days and rainy days, snowy days, and everything in between. We do have plans. Some of our campus does have generator backup, but not all of it does.
All right, Lisa's got the next question. She is wondering if students need to activate their card before arriving, or do they do it once they're on campus?
I would suggest doing it prior to. It just saves a lot of hassles. They can wait till they get here to activate it, but I have told all students that have called in that they should just activate it. And a lot of parents are concerned, if I can add this, that if they activate the card, they don't want their child to have, I mean, they already have a credit card or a debit card, and they don't want them to have like another active credit card or debit card. That's not what the Oiler One card, unless you make it that. You know, if you're going to actually put money on there, then yes, then it will be. Otherwise, that card is literally just for them to get into the dining hall and utilize for different programs. You know, it just tells, sometimes we have events on campus that they have to use their Oiler One card and show that. So that's what they would need that for.
If they only use their Oiler One ID as an ID, do they still have to activate it?
Yes, they do.
All right. Susan, there's your answer. Lisa has the next question. When should we have seen the Oiler One card envelope? Please repeat if we missed it. So when those would have been sent out.
I believe, and I could be wrong, I believe they're sent out shortly after the ID picture's taken. I think it might be about a 4-week turnaround, but I could be...
If they don't have it by now, they should definitely be contacting us at the university immediately.
And who do they have to contact?
They can call the Oiler Success Center, and I will get them to who they need to get to.
Can you remind everybody of the number?
Yes, my number is the 419-65. Oh my God, I'm giving you my home number. 419-434-4068.
Brian's correct. Those cards go out around
434-4068.
Those cards go out around 3 to 4 weeks after. And the chances are your student probably threw it away, as I mentioned earlier.
If you're not signed up for new student registration, that could be another reason why you didn't receive it as well.
Correct.
Sue doesn't have a question but a comment, and she's thanking Lisa for asking her question for her. So these questions are great. One of the other questions that we received earlier is, when can a student officially move onto campus?
A student should have information already given to them about when they can move into campus. Most new students will come in on that 2 to 8 p.m. on that Thursday, the 14th. The only real difference would be if an athletic team or the band, in which case you should have already been contacted by that coach with that move-in information, or if you're attending the very last registration, then you move in 5 to 8 p.m. on Wednesday, August 13th. Other than that, anybody with a special case should already have that information from their coach.
All right. Brandon, do you have anything to add on to that?
No. There's a few athletics that will be coming in actually end of this week, a few that come in the beginning of next week, but those are set up by the coaches with the athletes, so it's just as Brian described.
All right. One of the next questions comes from Mary. She has a couple of questions in here. We'll do one at a time. She's wondering, where do we even park on move-in day?
That's a great question.
It is a great question.
Move-in day is pretty busy around here. Here's my real-life advice. Just be flexible. You know, there are a lot of people here with the very same goal, to get their student moved in as quickly and efficiently as possible. There will be volunteers. You'll see the volunteers around where to move in. By each of our residence halls where we have students moving in, there are parking lots. I would suggest there will be a street right next to those, and that's where the volunteers will tend to gather. So for Bear, Fox, Maury, and Myers halls, there's a street between Davis and North Corey. There's an intersection there that's right by the admissions office. So where you came to get a campus tour, that's where you should go, and that's where the volunteers will be. And there are parking lots right around that area. For Lovett and Deming, North Corey Street, which leads right in front of Lovett, and then Fraser Street, which leads right in front of Deming. There'll be volunteers at both of those locations. And then for the UF Village and the UF Haven, Fraser Street, both of them front right on Fraser Street. So if you get everything unloaded, you'll see parking lots, and there'll be lots of people to direct you where you need to go for then. As far as picking up keys, I would suggest dropping your student off at the Union. which is on Fraser Street, and then going to the residence hall would probably be the easiest way and the least congested way.
Something to add on to the end of that, Brian, is to kind of encourage our families not to leave that car parked after they unload it, to please, please, please unload and move your vehicle on out. Otherwise, we end up with a very, very congested situation on all of those streets.
All right, the next question that Mary has here is, how do we address mail to our students? She wants to send some care packages, it looks like.
Oh, that's awesome. They love care packages. Basically, they will be given a mailbox number. That's what we need. You'll want to just put the University of Findlay and then the child's name or your son or daughter's name and then their mailbox number and Findlay, Ohio 45840. And it will go to our postal office, basically in the basement of Old Main, and they will put it in your child's individual mailbox. If it's a larger package, then they put a little tag inside their little mailbox, and then they ask for it at the window. And I think that's awesome. I can't express enough to parents, even if you don't live that far away, if you can send care packages, that's something that students absolutely love.
All right, the next question she has is, does her son or daughter have to leave the dorm during fall break?
That's a great question. We get asked about that one quite a bit. We're one of the fewer campuses that, while we close for the breaks, we do not require students to leave their halls. We have a very simple process. Shortly before each break, we send an email to students with a link to an online form that if they're staying and they need to stay, they're welcome to do so. It's just an agreement that we have them sign, and it lets us know where we need to have RAs doing rounds over all the breaks. We are open every single break. The only time people are required to leave is after the end of the academic year in May. And for Christmas break, only students who are enrolled in the spring are able to stay during Christmas break. But for all the breaks we're open, it's free of charge for students. So they can feel free if they have work or if they have athletic or if they have other commitments that require that they stay here. They're more than welcome to do that. They just need to let us know.
The last question that Mary had is, roughly how many electrical outlets are in the dorm room?
That varies quite a bit room to room. I would say as a rough guesstimate, thinking of our most common first-year student rooms, I would say between 4 and 6 per room, or per resident. So about, I would say like maybe 6 total that they might have between the two of them, 6 to 8 total. It just depends a little bit on the room. I would suggest bringing UL-approved power strips. That's a great way, something to think about. You don't think necessarily about how you're going to structure the cords, but we require that you use larger gauge extension cords. Thank you. Larger gauge extension cords, not the ones that are like 99 cents, but the ones that are a little heavier duty. For fire safety, we just want as much strength going through the electrical currents as possible. So I would encourage, a heavy-duty electric cord, and then or extension cord, and then also a power strip that's UL approved.
Awesome. Mary, those are some great questions. Thank you. Again, another reminder, you can keep chatting to us, all the questions that you might want to know, or you can tweet us your questions to @UFindlay using hashtag AskUF. The next question, Oiler one card picture. If it's so dark that you can't see the photo, is it still usable?
It is, but you can request to have that retaken. And a lot of students do. If they really don't like their picture, they can request to have that retaken.
All right. Sue's wanting to know if we have check cashing for our students here on campus.
As far as, are you looking specifically for checks addressed to the student, or where a student can write a check and get it cashed? As far as checking or cashing checks for students, like from an outside employer, we do not do that here. There are a lot of different banks in the area that will all be at a program the first week of classes called Market on the Mall. So a student can find out if there's a comparable bank or if they're part of a credit union. We have quite a few credit unions in the area that do shared branching that might work for them. But a student can get cash by writing a check, a personal check, to the University of Findlay, and I believe the max on that is $50.
It's $50, yes.
So hopefully we answered both options for that question.
All right. Sue, if that didn't answer your question, you can go ahead and get a little bit more specific. We will certainly answer that. Kelly's wanting to know if we can bring a bike, and if we are allowed to have a bike here on campus, where are we going to put it?
Well, you're definitely allowed to have a bike. We actually encourage that. There is quite a few students that have bikes. There are bike racks, and I know, Brian,
Sure.
you probably can answer. I know there are bike racks all over the campus. I just really personally would encourage is to have a good bike lock.
And security, actually we'll talk about bike racks in a second, but security, if you register your bike with them, they have a limited number of free bike locks that they're willing to give away. I highly recommend, there are lots of different options. The ones that we recommend are the U-shaped ones, where it's a heavy-duty metal that's a U with a strong bracket that will help. That's a little more secure than a chain link or a chain bike lock. But as far as places you can put your bike, they need to be attached to a bike rack. They can't be in the residence hall rooms, in the lobby, in a common area, in a house, attached to a tree. They need to be secured to an actual bike rack. The good news is we have a lot of those all over campus. And every year we get to work with a couple different student groups that propose suggestions for where a bike rack should go. And we pass those on to the physical plant. And they are really good at responding to those. If it's possible to put one there, they will. If a student has a suggestion for where they want to see a bike rack and there's room, please tell them, reach out to Student Affairs, reach out to Residence Life. We're always going to take as many suggestions as we can. Campus Improvements and Student Government Association also looks at those kind of issues. So if you want a bike rack a certain place and it looks like there's room, let us know and we'll see what we can do.
All right. So Sandy's wondering, how do we find out what our students' email is and their mailing address?
Well, their mailing address, does that come to them via email?
That's actually, it's all part of their online account. So looking at the My Findlay account, you should be able to see one of the tabs should tell you what the student mailbox is. If you can't find that information, I'll give you a phone number to call and we'll help you out. Their mailbox number can be found at you can call 419-434-4570, and that's Student Affairs. We'd be happy to help you out, but it's all in the My Findlay student academic information, which they should have the link to get into that. As far as email address, that's their account their username. So typically it's like a last name and then a first initial, or maybe last name, first initial, and then a number. That followed by @findlay.edu, that's the student's email address. So they should already have that information.
Correct. Username and password, yes.
And to give a little bit more details, you can always call your admissions counselor and they can help you out also. Cindy's wondering, what is a good size TV to bring to school?
I'll answer this one.
Full screen.
Oh, wait, Brandon's chiming in here.
I would honestly say anything less than like a 63-inch is just not even worth it. Bring flat screens because they are easier for us to carry. That is actually the advice on TVs.
What was his advice?
You said less than 63 inches doesn't matter, and then...
Only flat screens because everything else is far too heavy.
Okay. I think if you would ask our students, they would have probably a very different answer than what I would have. I would say whatever's in your realm as far as affordability, and maybe if you already have one, there's no need for students to have a big screen TV. The biggest thing is to make sure there's only one TV. Talking with the roommate, because that's, I think, the bigger concern is if there's 2 TVs, 2 microwaves, 2 fridges, that just starts to get things cluttered. As far as size, I don't really have a recommended size as far as TVs.
The rooms aren't that large. You don't need that big of a TV.
But your student may tell you differently.
I know. They might tell you differently.
So going back to the meal plan, Missy would like to know if a student can bring a guest onto their meal plan, and how does that work, and how often can they do that?
It's actually very, very simple. Each of our meal plans has 5 PAL passes per semester, and basically anytime a student wants to use those, they just notify the person at the front that they're using a PAL pass. And so 5 times a semester, it can be a friend who lives or who doesn't go to the university. It could be a friend that maybe lives off campus and isn't on the meal plan. They can use it for themselves if they'd want to sometime. It's really easy to use. You just have to let the front checker know that's what you'd like to do.
All right, another question coming in. And I'm guessing this is on move-in day. If a parent wants to go elsewhere to pick something up for a student, is it okay to come back on Thursday night or Friday?
Yes, go ahead, Ken.
No, I was just going to say absolutely. I would encourage the parents to be here on Friday because there are and Brandon can address this also, but there are multiple activities for parents and a lot of information that's going to be given out to parents on Friday. Brandon, would you like to add to that?
Absolutely. We have quite a bit of programming for our families throughout the day on Friday, so we really encourage them to take part in it. And also, it's much, much better, obviously, for the parents to go home and pick up that forgotten item than for the student to leave once you've gotten them to campus. So I would certainly encourage mom and dad to make that supply run if need be. And like I say, if there's something back home, you pick it up Thursday night, you bring it back Friday, you stay for the day, you see the art ceremony. So it's a good errand for mom and dad to run, maybe, to give your student a little first taste of that, being by themselves, being on their own.
Totally agree.
My only addition would be that if you end up going to run and get a supply for your student, to make arrangements as for how you're going to meet up ahead of time. The buildings will not be unlocked and the rooms will not be unlocked, so you'll just need to figure out whether you text or somehow get a hold of one another to go ahead and make that swap and make that switch.
All right, does our healthcare center give flu shots, and if so, when are those made available to students?
All right, yes, the health center does do flu shots. I'm a proud recipient for a few years. There is no charge for students for those, and they will email you once those are available. So the biggest thing is students need to watch their email, watch it's from UF Update, and also at the health fair at the beginning of the year, and I think it's in September, that's when they usually kick off the flu shot, so watch for that then.
Do students need to fill out their health history, or do they need to bring copies of their vaccinations?
A lot of that information should probably already be turned in. If you go on the health center's website, they actually will have a place there of the documentation of everything that they'll need. And it depends if a student is coming in healthcare professions, they need more in depth and they need more vaccinations than maybe a student that's coming here for the business program. So I would definitely have them check. If you have any questions, you can contact the health center and they will actually help answer those also.
One last thing on as far as
the next question.
Wait, Charlie, wait.
Washing machines here on campus, which, by the way, you know, laundry is free, but we were Susan was wondering if the washing machines require a special kind of soap, like a high efficiency type soap.
They do require the high efficiency soap. In most cases, some of our houses, some of our townhouses, where a lot of first year students won't be living, do not require those. But last time I looked at the washers, they require the high efficiency soap.
Charlie, can you hear me?
All right. For all the athletes that are moving in early, are there going to be helpers to help those athletes move in?
There are not going to be helpers. I suggest that they all as a team, that's a great team builder to help each other move in. But we do not have, because there are so many different times and dates, they just focus all the volunteers on that one big move in that's on the Thursday, August 14th.
Charlie?
Yeah, go ahead.
Something to keep in mind, kind of backtracking just a little bit to the health forms, is that our athletes will need physicals, and that does include the equestrian teams. So if your student is planning on trying out for the equestrian teams or is already on the equestrian teams, they will need to get a physical before the actual season starts. Another resource that they can utilize the health center for.
All right. Another reminder, once again, keep those questions coming. These are great questions. Kudos to you, parents. You guys are asking some good stuff here. You can also tweet your questions to @UFindlay using the hashtag AskUF. Moving on, we have a question about moving into the dorms. Mary wants to know if the parents are allowed to be in the dorm to help their students set up.
Yes, yes. Parents are definitely, as long as it's before midnight during the week and 2 a.m. on the weekends, yeah. Come help your student move in. A lot of parents have ideas about how things can be organized. We highly, that's a great thing. That's a great kind of rite of passage where the parents kind of help the student get organized, get situated. If they choose to loft their bed, our beds are all stackable. All of our furniture is stackable, and there are a lot of different ways that the furniture can be put together. So the more hands, the better to help lift things, move things, and there are books about how to do that available when students check in. So yeah, parents are more than welcome to help.
Still in the dorms, Sue would like to know if there is a place for students to wash their cups and dishes.
Some of our halls in Deming and Lovett are connected, and there are sinks dedicated to that in those buildings, and there are sinks dedicated to that in the village. But other than that, we recommend students use the bathroom sinks to do all sorts of washing of dishes, things like that.
All right, next question comes from Kevin. He is wondering if the standard cable cord is required to connect the TV just to standard basic cable.
Yes, we use the basics cable cords, simple one that you can get in most stores. Those work just fine.
All right. We've got a couple more questions here. Please keep the questions coming. If you got more on your mind, please go right ahead. If they, and Kay, you might be best to answer this next question. Let's say a student gets homesick. How should the parents respond to it?
Well, my recommendation is that you listen to them, hear what they have to say, but I would strongly recommend we have a free counseling services on campus, which is a free service. They actually have a lot of open hours that first week, so because we do deal with a lot of homesickness. Let your child know that this is not unusual. This is very common, whether it's male or female. You can have them come and talk to me in the Oiler Success Center. We deal with that a lot. We also have mentors on campus that are upperclassmen that have dealt with this when they were freshmen. And then they can actually, they'll go and have coffee or something just so they can relate to them and say, hey, I know how you're feeling. I bet you're feeling this. And this we have found has been very, very helpful. But listening to them, the worst thing you can do is say, oh, I know, I miss you so much. Please come back home. I want you to come back home, because all that does is really, it just aggravates the whole issue, or the whole issue that's going on. So we have a lot of people on campus that we help the students work through it, and 99% of the time we can work them through that. I just we did every once in a while get a case where a parent comes here, and the next thing we know, we find them sleeping on the floor in the dorm room. That's not a good thing. So
RAs are another great resource for students. They can feel free. Their RA lives with the student, so they can just pop down whenever they need somebody to talk to, and the RA can help them and also direct them to other resources as needed.
All right. I'm going to put a call out, last call out there for any questions that you might have. I'm going to flip over to a little screen share action here and talk a little bit about homecoming. Great time to get back on campus and connect with your student. It's a good time for them to experience homecoming on a campus as well. To get more information about homecoming, go out to our homepage here, and down at the bottom, click on the Celebrating 25 Years. We have a giant homecoming banner right there. Just click right on that banner, and it'll take you over to everything you need to know about what's happening with homecoming and what's going on here on campus. All right, let me switch us back over. Brandon was supporting a nice little beard there. It looked pretty nice. Okay. We've got a couple more questions here. If we're missing any healthcare or financial forms, would we have been notified by that by now?
Possibly, if you are concerned and you're not positive if everything's done, give us a call. Call financial aid. You can call them directly. They will look it up and they will tell you, yes, everything's in place. The same thing with the health forms. The health center will tell you everything's in place or not. If you want just to give me a call and we can do some calling for you and get back with you, we can do that also.
If you have a health concern, I would recommend that you encourage your son or daughter to go make an appointment with the health center or just stop by and talk to them about what their concern is, maybe what their needs might be, what kind of support they had at home, and what the health center can do while they're here to support them. It's all about making that connection.
All right, for those out-of-town parents, when the activities and everything else is said and done, where can they go? Where are some good places that they can go around Findlay?
All right, I'll start. One thing Findlay has a ton of are good restaurants. So depending on what kind of food that you'd like, there are a lot of different options as far as food. There are some right around the university. Trenton Avenue is a pretty popular location, and that's right next to campus. Or Tiffin Avenue is another place that's right close to campus. We have lots of chain restaurants, lots of local restaurants. Our downtown area has a lot of local restaurants that parents tend to enjoy. I would just look into trying to get suggestions once you get here. We find that parents tend to get a favorite place or two once they've been here a couple of times, where just like students, when they come back after their alumni, we have parents who every time they visit, there are certain places they want to hit, whether it be Deach Brothers Ice Cream, whether it be a restaurant, whether it be a place on campus, and there are just those local things that they always want to hit. As far as specific locations, when you're on campus during move-in, come find me. I'll ask you about what kind of food you're into, and I'll give you some good recommendations.
A lot of times parents, when they come on campus, love to go out to our barns and tour around there. It is quite exceptional. I mean, it's a lot to see out there. And then there's various things around the town and shops and whatnot available.
All right. If a student has a book in their schedule for classes and it's just not available at the bookstore, is it going to come in later, or should that student look elsewhere to find that book?
They can do either way as far as that goes. If they go onto the website, it should have exactly the ISBN number, the edition number, and they can look on adall.com, or there's various other sites out there, and they can see if they can find it. If the book is not in, the faculty member, the instructor, is not going to hold them accountable for having that book because they realize those books aren't in. Generally, almost always, very seldom, it's not past maybe the second day of class that students all will have their books in if they want to get them at the bookstore. But you can look elsewhere. There is no problem with that. Just what I recommend to all students that look, want to try to get their books through an online resource is make sure that it is the same ISBN number, the same edition number, the same authors, and then also make sure it's an English edition. We have some students that they think, well, wow, I got this book for $20 and find out it's in Japanese or Chinese, and then they have no book. So at least that they can comprehend. So that would be my recommendation.
We have a concerned parent making sure that the beds can be bunked.
They can. Again, we call it stackable. We have all of our furniture in all the rooms is stackable, which means all the pieces fit together using pins and holes. There are a lot of different ways that they can go together. Full booklets are available when a student checks in. The beds can fit on the dressers, which can fit on the bookcases. The bookcases can fit on the desks. There's a lot of different ways. All the pieces are interchangeable, and we have extra pins if a student has a different way. We have some students who never touch the furniture, and then we have some who every other week try to arrange it a different way. Either way is totally fine. Just experiment and have some fun with it. If you don't like it, you can always change it.
All right, we got time for a few more questions, and then we're going to call it a night, but we encourage everyone to keep asking their questions. You can definitely tweet us at UFindlay using the hashtag AskUF, and we will get back to your questions, even when this live chat is over. The next question we have is about scheduling. They went online to MyFindlay, and the website is telling them something a little different than they got in the mail, and they're wondering which one is correct.
So the schedule is different, I'm assuming is what they're saying. What has happened probably is a class was closed for one reason or another and rescheduled. So then what they did is they rescheduled them in another section that may have conflicted with another class, and thus the advisor went ahead and changed it. If that's the case and you have concerns, again, you can have your child or your son or daughter contact their advisor via email, tell them what their concern is, where the changes are different, because the schedule that they're seeing online right now, if they go into MyFindlay, is what their current schedule is. If there's something about that they're not happy about or they have questions about, that's where they need to contact their advisor. If they can't reach their advisor, they need to contact us in the Oilers Success Center. We have the Director of Academic Advising in there, and he will then look at that situation. So if there is some concerns there, please have your son contact their advisor.
If a student has to take a placement test for math on the Sunday of the move-in weekend, are they going to be able to see their results before class on Monday?
The placement exams results are almost usually within 2 to 3 hours after that they have the results to those. Sometimes it can be even quicker than that. It just kind of depends how many people are taking those placement exams. But they are pretty much immediate responses. So yes, the answer is yes.
All right. Parents, I'm sorry. Are the parents supposed to show up for Friday breakfast with their child, or are they just supposed to come in after the first parent session starts?
I would suggest parents are welcome to come anytime, whatever arrangements you make with your son or daughter, but now's the time to start making that separation. We encourage those first few days for students to meet as many new students as possible. Best way to do that is to kind of encourage them to be on their own at that point. So I would say do your own thing, go explore on your own, and let them have the opportunity to do the same, and encourage them, as tough as it might be. One of the best ways to meet people is to go up to a table of people you don't know and just sit down and start that conversation. It's tough, and it won't be easy, but the easiest way for people to meet people is to just take that leap and go for it. And that's what I would really suggest. You'll see your sons and daughters will see our staff with name tags on all orientation weekend long. They can always sit with us, but it's time to start meeting new people and exploring what Findlay has to offer.
All right. We're going to call it right there for answering any questions tonight. We definitely encourage you guys to keep asking questions, parents, if you have concerns. Again, tweet it at UFindlay using hashtag AskUF. Get a hold of your admissions counselors. And finally, for the panel tonight, I'm going to let them sign off with some last closing words, and we will call this a night.
All right. Well, on behalf of all of the Residence Life staff, I do want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. There's lots of choices on where you could be, and we're glad you joined us here. College is such an amazing time for students. It is the only time where they will have a safe environment to explore new things, to meet new people, to try new activities, to join clubs, and you'll interact with people from around the country and around the world. So do whatever you can to encourage your students to just explore, to have fun. There's the academic side, but also there's the human side, the fun side, the new experiences. It's going to be new, it's going to be challenging, but just encourage your students to take advantage of it. Please feel free, if you have any questions after this, you can also contact any of us. Student Affairs, you can find our information online. Housing and Residence Life, keyword housing. We'll help you any way that we can. And if you need anything while you're here during move-in, don't hesitate to ask one of us. We're here to help.
Well, with all those words, ditto to that. But I do want to thank you all for participating tonight with us and being part of this. This has been a great opportunity for myself as well. I look forward to having your sons and daughters on campus and you know, starting this new phase in their life and making these new independent individuals, and so they can be very successful in their careers. Thank you.
As far as orientation goes, just remember that technically all of our first-time freshmen are required to attend, so you might as well encourage them to do so. We've spent the last year, myself and the entire campus, planning to make this a great experience for them. I realize that your son or daughter may have that knack to want to go back to that safety net, go back to that bubble, especially during that first weekend, but really, really encourage them to take part in the orientation program. There's a lot of great stuff. We've involved the entire campus, and I promise if they skip it, they're going to be the one wondering why they did when all of their friends are talking about what they did at the activity, what they did last night, whatever it may be. Make sure that they're not that student that's going to be missing those experiences.
Thanks.